All right, all right. Welcome to the show. This is the Weekly Jargon. I am Jose Rodriguez.
Rohi Zachariah.
And today, Rohi, we're talking about the 4th of July Fireworks Spectacular.
Yeah.
This is an event that's been a tradition here in the city of Madera, especially the surrounding communities. And we try to bring this event here locally to try to get people to come out to this free venue to enjoy in lieu of trying to blast their own fireworks up in the air, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a community event.
Yeah.
Give me some context of the history of what you remember the 4th of July.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think for me, even as a kid, remembering going to the city fireworks show, and it's been a different lot of locations. I mean, I remember just off to the side of us when we had it at Town and Country Park. Obviously, they have it at the golf course for many years now. And, since then, having kind of revitalizing it and bringing it back to the fairgrounds, I think it's turned into, like you said, a community event and a family tradition for a lot of people.
Good, good. And in the mix of a lot of the national news that you're hearing, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the state news that we're hearing, especially with this whole insurrection, so to speak, that's taking place down south. You start talking about deploying military and what have you. Well, this event is not so much to try to get people divided, but rather bring people together in one event where you celebrate the 4th of July, of course, being the date of independence. When we come here and enjoy, it's going to be a hot day, but at the same time, Rohi, we get to enjoy a lot of the American culture of, you talk about it, right? The apple pie, the hot dogs,
Yeah.
coming out, and enjoying these fireworks. And again, they're a symbol of liberty and freedom and what we stood for back when our founding fathers were building our Constitution and building this country. Your thoughts?
So I think at a very core, it's really this came about, I guess, when we were running into issues a few years ago, procuring the fireworks and alternatives like we'll do a laser and music and stuff, and having talked to people who put those events on, and they said, look, people want the boom. They want to hear the noise. They want to see the light. It's a thing, and I think it roots down to. It's just, I guess, who we are. I don't know how else to best put it, that people want to have that experience. Now, what gets difficult is when you start getting into, especially, like you said, what's going on in today's turmoil down south is what does independence mean for people, And I think it gets difficult because when you start talking about it at a core, everybody wants to believe they're on the side of the original founding fathers. We stood up and we fought back and we fought the establishment to form our own nation. So when you say those things, excuse me, and you look at like what's going on today, for instance, in LA, and you mix that with the 4th of July, it's hard to have a stance because you say, well, are they like the founding fathers? Are they standing up for their beliefs and bucking the establishment? Or are you on the side that says, no, we already made our new establishment and we need to fight for keeping that establishment? So it can be very divided for people to kind of say like, well, which side are you actually on?
Yeah, no, and it does bring a sense of division, I think, with depending on what side of the aisle you are, right? And it's unfortunate because what's being unveiled here is really. I don't know if they're considered peaceful protests, but obviously it's government at its best, obviously doing their work, and peaceful protests turning into what one would deem as violent, right? And when it turns violent, then I think that's where you start seeing a lot of the attention that you've seen over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But to the extent where you have a National Guard, now the Marines, talking about Marines, and I think the last time they've deployed Marines here was probably back in 07, 09. And it's unfortunate to see that. Because there's only been a few times where you've used in domestic issues when you've used the military to come in and try to, separate the protesters. But I think when you're fighting for liberty, fighting for freedom, you look at some insurrections or you look at some history, like when China, I don't know if you remember that that square, Beijing Square, where that
Yeah.
bring out tanks and that and the world, especially us as Americans, that we looked at that and we said, hey, that's not who we are.
Yeah.
That's not who we are, and we don't stand for that. But yet, as this 4th of July is fast approaching, we aren't too far away from that either. And you start seeing these. And here's the thing: I think the news media really exacerbates this a lot because it's such a small, confined area where this thing is taking place. But yet, it looks like there's a war going on, a civil war going on within America, and it's more so in LA, right, in these particular area where there was a protest taking place, because obviously the federal agents or the immigration customs came out and they were doing their job, right?
Yeah.
But I believe it's the way they go about it gave way for this protest. There's a way of doing that, right? And I guess the way that it's taking place, where you're extracting people and what have you, just kind of it fuels history. History, you go back to similar things like in the 1930s, right? You have the Mexican repatriation that took place. And I think people, it's not that far away. It's almost 100 years since that happened, but it's not too far away. I think when you saw that the Chinese Exclusion Act, Japanese being placed in concentration camps. So history kind of teaches us something. And I think those wounds aren't completely healed. So when people see something like that, they stir up and they want to protest because that's part of their constitutional right is to, hey, we don't want to be around tyranny. And I understand that obviously this is a federal right to do their job when it comes to immigration. How it's done could be perceived in a different way. And I think leading to the 4th of July, and I know we want to talk about the event because it's very, for us, I think it's a gathering of our community.
Yeah.
We're not to that extent here in our community yet where you see that. Maybe LA is a different animal, so to speak, but for the most part, I don't think we see that here, Rohi.
And I think when you say it's to blame is really how it's being covered is 100% the issue. I mean, having gone and having some friends that live in other parts of the world, I remember we traveled to Brazil during a time when they were having similar turmoil. It wasn't about immigration, but a similar turmoil. And before we're getting there, we're seeing the news and we're getting all this be careful because there's riots everywhere. And we get there and we start asking the families and we're like, oh yeah, that's like in the next town and it's like a block. And people just know hey, at 3:00 we go over there, we cause a ruckus, and then we go back and have dinner, And it kind of really brought down oh, so it's not the whole country on fire, basically like the news is portraying it, And you'll see that a lot, I mean, when the fires are happening, just last year, a couple years ago, you get people all the time saying, hey, are you guys okay? And we always look around and laugh we're in Madera, we're not on fire, we're not even near the problem. But because of the way it's portrayed, the news is always going to make it exacerbate it, oh my gosh, everything is just burning down.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a lot of what is happening right now. When I watch a lot of the videos, yes, there are definitely crowds, but the news has a good way of looking at different angles, and it could be maybe 200 people we're talking about, making it feel like it's a stadium. And the danger with that, like you're saying, as we approach, the 4th of July and our event is how is the public's perception of that? If they feel that needs to be them, if they need to be included in that, is that going to spark something? Is Fresno going to light up and all of a sudden say, hey, even though we're not really seeing that kind of, ICE activity, immigration activity here, we need to start something.
Yeah, and and this is where the power of media is so powerful. Whether it's your social media, because that's mainly where you're getting these feeds from.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, Rohi, but I hardly watch TV nowadays.
Yeah, I'm
most
with you.
of my news, I'm getting in little bits and pieces of what you see or what you read across social media. Right? There's a post of someone or a video of someone throwing a rock.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, obviously that probably isn't the most intelligent thing to do, but I think, for some people, they say, well, you're committing a crime by attacking a federal vehicle. Others may see it as, well, yeah, stand up for your rights, and, you have mixed emotions. So if the plan is to get you or me or anyone out there to have some type of emotion over what you see, then that's the plan. That's
Yeah.
the strategy, is to get you on one side or the other of where you stand. This way, we know if something was to disrupt, then I know that I can count on the American people to continue to support the actions that'll be taken by the administration, the state, and what have you. And you're starting to see this now back and forth. Now you got our governor also getting involved, and obviously, rightfully so. I think he's speaking on behalf of the overreach that the federal government had when they're trying to deploy any military or National Guard. Obviously, that goes. I think the governor has the right, I think, to get that connection going, and it seems like there's a disconnect, and that disconnect obviously creates division. So again, California, one of the bigger states, powerful in its economy, having to stand up for its sovereign right, and then you have the federal government that has obviously its rights as well as a federal government, as instructed by what the articles have in our Constitution.
Yeah.
So obviously that creates a divide, and it's unfortunate as we lead up to this 4th of July event. But we're not going to beat on that too much, Rohit.
Yeah.
We're just going to, slightly talk about these events because they're happening. And obviously, when you hear us talk here in the Weekly Jargon, it's because we want to share our opinions, and that's a disclaimer we give you. We're not. Well, I mean, I'm not saying it's an unfortunate thing, but we're definitely not attorneys, and we are local political officers here. But what we cater to our constituency is more about what we provide them for services for our city. It's hard for us to step out of that hat and then share our personal views when people may see it as no, you actually have a political stance. And we may do, because that is our given right. But at the same time, we're trying to promote and foster a healthy event that's coming through here at the city. We definitely want to touch on some of the stuff because it's important to you. You guys want to know, hey, how is this coming about? How are we doing? But here's what we're going to do: is we're going to touch on how this event was created, why we think it's such an important thing for you guys to get out there with your family and enjoy it. And this is why we have it here. We're going on. This is our 4th year, but 3 actual years that have been going on. And Rohit can give you some context on the history.
Sure.
But Rohit, tell us why we decided to bring this back to the Madera District Fair.
Sure. So I think for me, when again beyond the tradition, I mean that was a huge part. I think you kind of hit it just a little bit, but it's the city, and we're not the only city. Every city's struggling with this, but the use of what's being deemed as illegal fireworks. And I think for most people who were, going, again, that was their family tradition, is a month before the 4th of July, you go run over to Nevada, Arizona, whatever, maybe Oregon, where they're legal. You go buy them, you bring them across. And it's like anything else. I mean, because, again, coming from the gun industry, I can relate to this, with customers, it's people wanting what they know they can't have, So it's not that the fireworks are even great. I mean, obviously for us, we would usually see a ton of them, from about now to the 4th of July. And you look at it and you go like, wow, you risked all that for a little boom, in the sky. So it's the event itself is kind of a multifaceted. It's to kind of say, look, you don't need to run that risk, for one. You don't need to go get a fine or get in trouble for going and getting these things. And it's providing a safe means to enjoy that type of atmosphere. Because like I said, people want to have the bang and the boom and the lights and come together. So it's in hopes that as the event continues and grows, there'll be a less of a need to go and get these items, to go get some of these illegals. And why I say that is, we had one of our customers just a few years ago who actually died from one of those fireworks. I don't know. It sounds like, it was just one of those things where it didn't go off and they went to go check on it and it just blew up on them, So it's understanding that you're messing with a bomb at this point that is coming from an unquestionable, source, and it's not California approved, so it doesn't have that safety stamp. So it's got a lot of dangers. And again, if you hear just like how many houses burn down and how many people get injured on leading up to the 4th with some of these things, it's kind of like it's a no-brainer to say we need to have this event to kind of give a healthy environment to enjoy that kind of event.
Yeah, and since I've lived here in Madera, I know that the 4th of July has been a great celebration. I think prior to bringing it to the district fair, and this is maybe it definitely predates me being here in Madera, so I know that there was a history of having it at the district fair. But when I arrived in Madera in 2005, I only knew that it was at the golf course, and at that golf course is where these events took place. Again, you know, it was pretty hectic trying to get to parking, but at the end of the day, it provided a good event for that half hour, 45 minutes. Now, bringing it to the district fair obviously gave us more of a centralized location where there is parking. Obviously, there's parking. There is vendors that we have. Everything is structured and organized. And again, bring your family. There's plenty of room there to bring your family, bring your lawn chairs, and you know you're gonna expect to have a really good show. Now, the one thing that we can control, obviously, is the climate, and that does become a problem, right? Because climate, sometimes it's hot. And
it's changing.
It's changing, but it's hot, and I think people would rather be inside their homes with the AC, drinking their cold drinks, than being outside, and you know when it's really hot. But again, I think the part of the 4th of July event really starts after 6 o'clock. I think you start seeing people wanting to come.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some good food, but I would encourage you to come out, bring your family, bring your lawn chairs, enjoy the show, because for that 30 to 45 minutes, you'll get a sense of wow. At that moment, Rohi, is when I start seeing this is kind of what America's about. Everybody's quiet down. Everybody's listening to the fireworks, and we're at an awe just looking at how these explosives can go up in the air and create this beautiful scene that we all want to see. Now, what we don't want to see in our city is we don't want to see multiple fireworks going off in different times in different areas because, you know, we got to be respectful, right? And sometimes I think this is a part, like you said, is people always, they have that itch to bend a little bit. Even as a youngster, Rohi, there was always something about the rule is you don't do this, but for some reason, just that inquisitiveness that we all have is what would it be like if I launched some firework up there and see what happens, right? And I was guilty of that, you know, because someone had it, and you know, me being naive, I said, well, I'm curious to see what, and sure enough, Rohi, as soon as it went up, I mean, I covered my ears. I didn't even listen to it because I knew it was going to be a loud bang, and I'm sure it was going to create some ruckus, and it did, right? It did. Now, after that, I won't lie to you that I got scared. I go, I wonder if somebody heard. They're going to come and look for me and what have you. But I think a lot of folks around here, when you say the illegal fireworks, people are curious. They're inquisitive. They find them cheaper. Your fireworks today, Rohi, can go for $150 for a simple box that are California approved, but yet, you know, you don't get that spectacular like you would when you launch one of these illegal fireworks that do.
And I'll argue the safe part, because before we were doing this event, I remember the few years prior to that, you know, we did what everybody else does. We went down to the local fireworks stand, bought, like you said, a couple $100 worth of fireworks. And I remember the last time we lit them off, there were multiple ones that went off that were like either they exploded or they were definitely like not going to the safe height. And it catches you because you're like, well, wait a minute, I spent extra money to make sure I'm buying the safest stuff I could, and yet it still had malfunctions. It still has this safety risk involved where like you go, well, what's the point? Like you said, I can go buy the cheaper ones that are probably just as dangerous or safe, however you want to look at it. It doesn't make sense, you know. And the other hard part I always struggled with was kind of the ramifications, you know. Like they always say it's fines, you know, and then there's usually the news article to explain like, don't do this because you're going to have fines. And I always laughed at it because people don't realize when you look at California code. So if you remember your physics class, we had a really good teacher here in Madera that would always do what they would call a CO2 bomb, right? So he would put the dried ice in a 2-liter to kind of show the expansion and blow it up. California law says that's a felony. That's a felony. You go to jail for that, right? So here's an explosive blowing up, and that's a felony. But yet you can go buy an M80 or an M1000 or something like that, and you go blow something up, and guess what they do? It's a fine. So trying to understand and wrap your head, if you're really trying to get rid of these things, instead of telling me, well, it's only really a big fine if you have like a truck full of these things, then you're not really looking at the problem, right? You know what I mean? Because if you ever looked at the fine structure, but basically it was a joke, because unless you literally had like a moving truck full of fireworks, that's when it started getting to like a $20,000 fine. You go look like, I'll pay $20,000 if I can have a truck full of these things, So I just always felt like California really wasn't trying to tackle the problem. They were just trying to make it look like they were.
Yeah. And it's no different when you have like a no smoking, right? I mean, obviously you have these signs in different areas
Yeah.
of our parks, and you don't have the enforcement sometimes. But I mean, if you really wanted to crack down on that, then you would have someone.
I think it's a
enforcing
bigger fine to litter right now than
Yeah,
it is to have
it is.
illegal fireworks. That's what I'm saying is the
Yeah.
crazy part here is, like, if I throw a piece of trash on the ground, I don't know, it's like $600,000 fine, something crazy. But if I light off a bunch of illegal fireworks, it's maybe $500 fine if you're caught.
I mean, and one I guess in a way, I mean, that is the patriot way of celebrating the
Yeah.
4th of July on this specific day. For us, I think we look at it more as safety,
Yeah.
because you're not out in these rural areas. And I think that if you're out in more of a mountainous areas where you have dry brush, I think it's more, you're adding more risk of a possible fire, that could scale up to become something pretty big. I think
Yeah.
at that moment, you're going to use your head a little bit and think that, hey, think it through before you start doing something that could potentially lead to big fires. And here in the city, I think we look at it the same way, right? We look at it like, well, if you are going to light up these illegal fireworks, the residue may land in a roof that could be a wood shake, and these embers could potentially light up, especially in the dry conditions that we're in,
Yeah.
could light up a house. And that becomes a problem. I think we've seen this where the calls for service on this day are really elevated. There's,
Yeah.
we have a lot of calls for service. So I think for us to promote this event, we're not trying to just give you some context, a history, but we're also trying to promote the event because we know that our community during these times, especially with the heat, people are out, they want to drink, drink as whether it's cold drinks or any alcohol. That may lead up to, could lead up to stirring up some chaos, some violence sometimes. But
Yeah.
what better way to bring the community together to a centralized event that's going to have what you need? They'll have your drinks, controlled security, police officers. You'll have where you feel safe. You want a controlled environment where you feel safe.
Right.
To bring your family, you get to see some great fireworks show, and you get to have some good food. And there's things for the kids to do. We'll be walking around. We'll be trying to coordinate. I think, Rohi, you take a big lead on that, you and your family. But this is why I wanted to bring it here, is to bring our community a centralized location where not only the city of Madera, but the surrounding communities within our county can come and enjoy this event that'll easily facilitate for the amount of people that we have in our surrounding community. No different than the district fair.
Yeah, and I think that was, again, kind of the push to bring it back to a more centralized location is, some people they want to sit at home. I mean, they want to be able to have their backyard barbecue and still see the show. And this allows, because of its location, a much greater audience than just necessarily the fairgrounds. And obviously being on Friday this year, I think we will hopefully see an influx in people just because, the next morning you don't have to wake up and go to work like we had the previous year. So, and again, I think the last part is really looking at the value. And I think that's where, if I had to ask for anything from the community, is to kind of say, maybe that $100, $200 you would normally spend on those fireworks, if you're not going to, come support the event. Just don't just sit in the parking lot and, go get your In-N-Out burger and just enjoy the show. Like, come spend some money with the vendors and help support it. And again, just it kind of helps keep this and make sure it's sustainable. Because again, that's part of it is, we're keeping this alive by generous donations from a lot of our sponsors, but we also want to make sure that the community understands like it comes at a cost. I mean, it does cost quite a bit of money to put this show on, and their support is necessary to kind of keep it going. So.
Yeah, and we don't want to leave out your partners in this, right?
Yeah.
We definitely have great partners. I think, when service clubs come together to work on a collaborative solution for, in this case, as a community event.
Yeah.
I mean, you open a lot of doors, and the Evening Lions, is it the Sunrise Rotary or the
Noon Rotary,
But
yeah.
either way, the Rotary and your Greater Madera Kiwanis,
Yeah.
3 service clubs that are working together alongside your county of Madera, your city of Madera, and all these other donors. We can't leave the show not naming them because of their support. We've been able to continue this. Again, this is a community coming together.
Mm-hmm.
You have Links Ranch, you have Mid Valley Waste Disposal, you have Fagundes Dairies, you have Spencer Construction, you have PG&E, even Embark, our local dispensary here, and other prominent donors that have always been helping this event move forward because they see the benefit of giving back to the community in a sense, and this is the way to do it on the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
Here is the contributions that you make. The fireworks obviously being a big expense, were a big expense for the city, but now dividing that into all these partners and donors, that makes it a lot easier for us to bring it together for the community. And we hope to continue to do this. And as Rohi had mentioned, you could go out there and spend the $250 on that box to keep it in your community, or save those $250. Come and participate in this event. Spend your money there with the local vendors. Keep your dollars in there, and enjoy.
Yeah.
Bring your family. You'll have a great time. Good music. We'll have a lot of, again, food, vendors, events, activities for the kids, and at the end, you'll have a blast with the show.
Yeah, and I think, my challenge to the community would be if you say you want it bigger, just help donate. Remembering that 100% of the proceeds goes to this event. Nobody's making money, nobody's taking anything home. So, when you say, well, I want the show longer, or I think we should have more fireworks, great. Help donate a little bit, because that, like you said, that little 100, 200 spread amongst the community, I mean, we could have a sizable show if they really wanted it,
And even with the drones nowadays, Rohi, you've seen that, and
Yeah.
that comes with cost.
Yeah.
And I think it's more cost having a show like that. But again, this is all done through efforts that these service clubs and a selected few people go out there and do to try to make sure we can make something of this size and bring it to our community.
Yeah.
And it takes a village. It does take truly
Yeah.
a village. You'll have your police department, your fire department. I think you'll have your marshal, right? That has to be involved.
Yeah, yeah.
The county, the district fair staff, city staff, our staff, county. We're all there participating to make sure that